and truth prevails. Our land where there's hope for us all. Our land where there's hope for us all.
Of course, it is the election season and events continue to build up until February 2023 when the general election and then most importantly, the presidential election will be held in Nigeria. And of course, we'll continue to speak to some of the issues that have been, coming up as a result of the preparations being geared towards the actualization of the general elections as scheduled by INEC, the electoral umpire in Nigeria. And as part of this electioneering process, presidential candidates across political platforms have been making efforts to bring Nigerians along in their bid to run for the most exalted political office in Nigeria. Some have presented their manifestos, others still in view, maybe. Of course, except for the Labour Party presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, who has outrightly said that he didn't believe in written manifestos bearing any last-minute change. Up until now, we've not heard anything from him. But today, we would focus on the 5-point agenda of the People's Democratic Party presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, on Public Square this morning. I beg your pardon. On Politics 2023 today, for now, the theme of the program will be Politics 2023 up until probably after the election. Welcome on the show. My name is Olabisi Olani Oluwasegun. And this morning, I've got representatives from the People's Democratic Party here in the studio with me this morning. I have the Publicity Secretary of PDP in Ondo State, Mr. Kennedy Perete. Thank you for coming, Mr. Perete.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
All right. And we also have Mr. Gbenga Kimoyo, who is also of the PDP, and he is also the founder of Lead I Follow. Thank you for coming, Mr.
Thank you very
Kimoyo.
much. Good morning to all our listeners at home.
My name is Olabisi Olani Oluwasegun. We'll go on a very quick break, and when we return, we will continue the conversation. All right, welcome back. Before we went on that break, I told you that we'll be looking at some of the reactions that this 5-point agenda by the PDP presidential candidate has, risen since it was presented to the public. The workability of this agenda, and of course, the criticism is what we'll be looking at on the program today. The program, that's the document christened My Covenant to Nigeria, has in it 5 cardinal points that centers around security, education, restructuring, and of course unity and the economy as well. Now, to be more specific, while talking about this, the document, according to Atiku Abubakar, says that it would restore Nigeria's unity through equity, social justice, as well as cooperation and consensus amongst Nigeria's heterogeneous peoples. It will establish a strong and effective democratic government that guarantees the safety and security of life and property. It will build a strong, resilient, and prosperous economy that creates jobs and wealth and lifts the poor out of poverty. It will promote a true federal system which will provide for a strong federal government to guarantee national unity while allowing the federating units to set their own priorities. And lastly, it says it will improve and strengthen the education system to equip its recipients with education and required skills. Okay, let's just stop at that point. But more precisely now, the 5-point development agenda of the PDP presidential candidates centers around first restoration of unity in diversity, to ensure safety and security of life and property, build a dynamic economy for prosperity, restructure the polity to foster unity and stability, and lastly, to provide qualitative education. So this morning, we would look at these points one after the other. First off, Mr. Aperite, it's no more news. Everyone in Nigeria knows that the second name of your presidential candidate now in the political arena is the Unifier. That's what we hear. And a lot of Nigerians have been criticizing this nomenclature, so to put it, given that within the party right now, it's been difficult for the leadership of the party as well as the presidential candidate to unify even the PDP, let alone unifying an entity as Nigeria that has multiplicity of a lot of things to say. Now, how would you convince Nigerians that truly Atiku Abubakar has what it takes to unify the country?
Well, the issues must be put in proper perspective. What some persons in the political space have kind of challenged Atiku's Unifier credentials are based on the fact that within the party there is a bloc that feels that the southern part of the country is not being carried along. It's been shortchanged. It's been shortchanged. But you see, what I call perspective is that how did we get to where we are? If you don't know how we got to where we are, then it will be difficult for you to appreciate or for you to be able to really dissect what the issues are. Now, before the presidential primaries, there was a national convention. And in this national convention, there was a committee that was put in place to agree on what they call zoning. Where should the president of the PDP, the presidential candidate, where should it come from? Is it supposed to come from the south? Is it supposed to come from the north? Now, a committee was put in place that comprised of 37 members. That is, each state had a representative in that committee, where it was hotly debated. You know, there were counter arguments, there were arguments, and at the end of the day, it was resolved, led by the PDP government. Wike is one, and it was resolved. The governor of Enugu, who's part of the Wike camp now,
part of the G5 governors.
G5 governors. He was the chairman of that committee, and that committee recommended to NEC, that is the National Executive Committee, that the presidential candidate must be thrown over. The battle must be thrown open. There should be no need to say it should come from the north or it should come from the south. So this is the background. So having decided on that, the presidential primary was conducted and a candidate emerged. So it will be difficult to convince all stakeholders that these issues that have been trashed, properly addressed prior to the convention, that is prior to the PDP primaries, presidential primary, can now become a major issue. Well, on the face of it, it does appear so, but it's more complicated than that. For example, let's take the most simple of them all. If you say, IU must go. If, for political reasons, you know, it's okay, it appears on the face of it that a particular section of the country is being shut out, so let IU go. By our own statute, by our own constitution, you know, the person that will step into IU's shoes is the National Deputy Chairman North, who is again a Northerner. It means for you to address that supposed lopsidedness, you must ask two persons to resign first. That is, IU must step down, the national executive chairman North must also step down. Then you bring the national chairman to the South. Are you going to have the national chairman and the national secretary again in the South? Are you not going to trigger another agitation in the North? Then again, to balance interest, the national secretary must also resign. Then, when we have just a few weeks, so to speak, to election, you are now shot yourself into an arena where there will be interest. Because prior to the convention itself, there were all kinds of blocks, interest groups. You know, there were only
when you say there are all kinds of blocks,
Yes.
interest groups within
the party.
a political party,
Yeah.
that's a political party is just a section of the bigger entity, Nigeria. In Nigeria as a whole, there are lots of blocks, there are lots of interest groups, there are lots of interest to say, so to say, and one would expect that the job of unifying the PDP should be a very minor one compared to what lies ahead of Atiku. If he cannot settle this, how would he settle the other?
No. If anybody is saying that it cannot be settled, the person is just trying to exaggerate. Because if you look at the issues critically,
How far has the settlement gone?
well, it's a process. It's a process.
Because the
And
last
so-
I heard, the PDP is supposed to have its inauguration, the Presidential Campaign Council inauguration today.
Yes.
And we hear that former Governor Olusegun Mimiko has even said he's not interested, doesn't want to be part of that list. Does that not mean that there is more trouble that we even than the public perceive?
No. It is not a trouble as far as we are concerned.
But is that true? Has it rejected the offer?
Yes, I saw the press statement. I saw the press statement. It was not addressed to the PDP. It was a press statement. So I read it the same way you read it, you know. But I assume that it actually emanated from the former governor of Ondo State. And you know, you must also understand that in this business of politics, sometimes people exaggerate things. They make things look bigger than they really are. Because if you look at the PDP, Dr. Olusegun Mimiko, for example, there is nobody that can wish him away. This was the governor that was elected twice. He was minister under the PDP. He was secretary to government. You know, he has been anything that anybody can be in this state. So it would be wrong for anybody to say, "Oh, he doesn't exist." No, but see, there are a great number of followers in supposedly camp who are going to be present for the inauguration today. So it's you will be shocked that what people are celebrating as a problem will just be a small thing that will be resolved in a matter of minutes.
Okay.
Because they have not said anything that is fundamentally against the interests of the PDP. No.
All right, now let's talk about the unity of Nigeria. That's where we're starting from, because that's the first point he listed. Now, Nigeria as of today has never been more polarized, more disintegrated. According to the reports that we've been getting in recent times, there are lots of agitations across Nigeria based on ethnicity and religious leanings. Now, the question is, does Atiku himself as a person, let's forget about the wranglings within the PDP now, does he have what it takes? What credentials does he have to be called a unifier? How does he intend to go about that? How do you think he would go about it?
I take it that's for me, Labisi. The fact that I'm here and I'm sitting with the publicity secretary of PDP gives me a little bit of respite that I can speak not as PDP member or stalwart or stakeholder, but more as the chief executive of Lead I Follow, which is all about good governance. And for any serious presidential candidate in any election that is to hold in 2023, there must be a statement about unification of this country called Nigeria. We recall that there was a change of baton in the political party structure in 2015, and a certain political party came with a mantra that there was going to be change. Now, I don't like slogans, but political parties have a culture of using slogans. When we tag His Excellency, former Vice President, as a unifier, it's based on his character, on his personality, on his competence, on his antecedents of what he has done over several decades. And it's not out of place to call him by nature a unifier. However, there is a test in front of him. And some of us Nigerians now who want to make an informed decision about who to choose in 2023 are a little bit frustrated about how long it's taken for issues to be resolved. And it does give some fear. A warning should go to the PDP that we made a similar mistake in 2014 when we said to ourselves that certain people really didn't matter. And we had a G something back then, and certain people departed. And they joined what is today the APC. It gave us problems. And we all know that we lost the elections eventually. So if really he is a unifier, I think he needs to step up the plate and put this matter to rest once and for all. But at the same time, there needs to be a balance. A political party is a collection of people who share the same ideology and purpose and direction about how, if we win government, if we win the elections, how we're going to run the government.
Ideally.
Yes. So when we say there are various interests, there are, because we're dealing with human beings. But on certain issues, we should all be united. And unfortunately, our party at the moment is not giving the general population the impression that we're on all fours. We need to wake up. We need to wake up.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're going to have the same problems. We're going to be painted with the same brush that party that gave a slogan in 2015 and didn't deliver the goods. But to say that His Excellency Atiku doesn't have the credentials to unify Nigeria, I think that is an understatement. He's got more than what it takes to unify. But he needs to step up the plate.
If you say that he has more than what it takes to be the unifier. Now, you'd recall in Kano about 2 weeks ago when he was with the Northern Consultative Elders at the forum during the interaction, where he said that he is a Northern, he is a pan-Nigerian of Northern extraction. I'm not getting that verbatim, but something like that. So that's, was a pointer to the fact that it could be likened to an ethnic jingo, like a lot of Nigerians have opined after that statement was made by him. Do you think it wouldn't be too difficult for the PDP to position the same person as a unifier?
You see, when you're on a campaign, you have to speak to the audience that's in front of you. Now, when I'm from Idori, a federal constituency, when I campaign in Idori, I'll be talking about timber, cocoa, and the fact that there's only one road into Idori and one road out. The other half of my constituency...
Issues at hand.
Yes. Issue-based. The other part of my federal constituency, I won't be talking about timber, cocoa, and roads because it doesn't apply to the other half of the same federal constituency. So when Alhaji Atiku Abubakar says, I am a northerner that the northerners need, one should put it in the context of what he is saying. He's talking to a northern audience, and he's saying, if you were to choose anybody from the north, it has to be me for these reasons, A, B, C, D, E, and so on and so forth. When he's addressing a southern audience, the narrative will be different. But on unification, he'll be saying the same thing, that we have to talk about one Nigeria. So those who read and explained his statements mischievously out of context, we know what it's about. But again, we need to emphasize that he's speaking to different audiences about general issues. But how he presents it will be different in language and different in emphasis, and in fact different in dialect. And that's what the mischief makers wanted to make out of that.
Before we move on to other issues, is there anything you want to add to that, Mr. Perite?
Yes.
Because I can see your body language.
Yes, first of all, it was in the Arewa house in Kaduna, not in Kano. Like Garo said, it was talking directly, because it was a question and response. It was a response to a question. What are you going to do for the North? What is on your table for the North? So he couldn't have been talking about any other person. And he established that he is a pan-Nigerian and that the North should not be talking about somebody who has expressly stated that he is going to champion a Yoruba agenda or an Igbo agenda. So it was clear. So those who tried to misinterpret what he said.
The reason a lot of Nigerians made that interpretation was because he said specifically that the North does not need a Yoruba or an Igbo candidate. And that was quite insensitive, according to them.
No. He said, if somebody now comes and says that, look, you Northerners, you need a Yoruba president, that can't be correct. Because it's not a Yoruba president that you need. You need a pan-Nigerian president. This is exactly the explanation. Okay,
that settles it. Now, moving forward, the reason we started with the unifying prospects, so to put it now, of Atiku Abubakar is because that's the first thing he listed on is on the document. And then it also goes ahead to talk about economy. It mentioned education, security, and in fact, unity comes up twice here in this document that I have before me. But let's talk about the economy. It's in shambles, and it's not peculiar to Nigeria alone. It's a global phenomenon at the moment. The economy globally, a lot of countries have been, even the UK recently had one of the key officials resign because of, according to her, market failures and different things that she thought she could do better, but she couldn't do at the end of the day. Now, Nigerians are grumbling, and they claim that there is hunger in the land, and a messiah is needed, that something should be done to revamp the economy. Now that it's coming up as someone who has what it takes to reposition the Nigerian economy, the question people are asking is, what would he do differently? He was vice president before. It was at the helms of affairs with former President Olusegun Obasanjo at that time. And there were a lot of allegations, corruption allegations, still hanging around his neck as we speak. What exactly will Atiku do differently this time?
Well,
before we go into details of some of these allegations, yes. I have them here.
No. If anybody says that there are corruption allegations hanging on his neck, it is just speculation. Because he has not been convicted by any court of law, any court of competent jurisdiction to say that, anybody can wake up and make allegations. But it will not be enough. You have to prove, and once it's proved, such a person probably will be convicted by the court. Then it stands that this person has been charged for corruption and convicted for say. Having said that, I would like to say that, people talk about global economy, there's problem in the UK, there's problem in Canada. They have not understood the indices or the reasons for which some of these countries are having those problems. Nigeria's case is quite different. And only yesterday, or day before yesterday, there were, the CBN governor addressed Nigerians and said they were going to change,
redesign the Naira notes.
So the problem that has brought us here is what I call voodoo economics. There are allegations by former CBN governor Sanusi Lamido that the Nigerian government had printed 21 trillion naira into the economy. The same allegation was made by the governor of Edo State some years back. And
do you believe these allegations?
Because we can see the symptoms, we can see the effect. Some people recently were even comparing Nigeria with Uganda, where Idi Amin said, go and print Ugandan shillings for me. And that's 21 trillion naira. So this one they are doing, is maybe an attempt to mop up the naira, as if that is what is causing the problem. The problems that are being faced in Europe have to do with COVID, where there were so many countries that pumped so much money into their economies, trying to say, oh, let us do this one to soften to cushion the effect of COVID. So by the end of COVID, so to speak, or temporarily as it seemed, there was so much money in those economies. And the simple law of demand and supply, that definitely there will be inflation.
No, let's get this straight, because I do not want us to misinform the public.
Yes.
Now, you say that the economic woes in the UK, the UK is assumed to be a developed country,
yes,
is as a result of the post-COVID realities. And now you are isolating Nigeria from the same. Nigeria was also hit by COVID-19, and we're even a developing country. So who says that the same factors that affected the UK could not even hit Nigeria harder than it hit the UK?
Okay, now, I don't know how many relief packages you received as BC during the COVID. There were places where some of these things that they call relief materials were piled up. There were no Nigerians. In fact, the Minister for Humanitarian, whatever they call it, said that during that time there was COVID, they spent almost 500 million to feed Nigerian children. And we're asking, where were these children fed? So we cannot be saying that we are so affected by COVID, because what the Nigerian government was doing at that time was not something anybody. As at that time I was in Abuja, there was nowhere they brought things for people, for the common men to share. Different from where in civilized, or what they call developed countries, people were bringing materials to their doorsteps. Monies were being pumped into those economies. So Nigeria cannot, in good conscience, claim that it was because of COVID that we have this problem.
Let's even assume that there is a problem now that we have identified. Yes. What will Atiku do differently?
Exactly. He has explained in his document that he is going to break government monopoly. Where, for example, now in the last few days, there is fuel crisis. You cannot get fuel to buy. That the NNPC, for example, should be privatized in such a way that there will be modular refineries. There will be places I don't know, during when these telecommunications first came into Nigeria, I bought Econet for 33,000. But right now, I don't think lines are being sold that are almost free. That is because there is MTN, there is Airtel, there is Glo, there is this and that. So you liberalize, you kind of make it possible. The government must take responsibility for creating an enabling environment whereby, if, for example, now if you walk into a bank and you bring a proposal that you want so amount of money, you will never get. But some other persons will get the same money. And right now there is what they call parallel market. There is the market that is I don't know what they call it now, the forex. That one that if government takes charge for the exchange rate. And Sanusi also explained that there are rent seekers in the sense that they just take maybe $1 million from the central bank and take it at the rate of 400 naira per dollar, and take it to the parallel market, or the one that they call black market, and sell for 720 or 700 naira per dollar. Instantly, on the same day, they have made about 300 million without lifting a finger. So how do you intend to run an economy that will be effective under that kind of situation? These are the things that Atiku Abubakar is saying is going to address to make it possible. Let government face its assignment of creating enabling environment, then stimulate the economy in such a way that it will be able to rise up to the challenges of everybody. Because all this one you are talking about exchange rate. What affects the ordinary man is that what is the price of gari in the market? What is the price of pupuru, like in my place, in the market? How much is a bag of rice going for? But we have seen a government that assembled people that just practice voodoo economics. They are not interested in the general laws that govern things, and that is why we are where we are. So I believe very strongly that based on his antecedents, based on what he has been able to do in the past, we have no doubt that Atiku Abubakar will be able to address some of these lingering economic crises that will bring succor to Nigerians.
Okay, one of the issues that Nigerians have been talking about...
I don't know if I can just tag on that
briefly,
economy.
Briefly.
Yeah. I use an analogy to explain to Nigerians in a more down-to-earth and more realistic and understandable language that when you say you want to address the economy, you're talking about agriculture, industrialization, and commerce. That's what the three components are of the economy. There's a government that came and said they're going to address economy, but we seem to be worse off 7 years later. But the point of the matter is this. Your question is, how will Atiku do it? When you go into a doctor's surgery because you're clinic because you're ill, you don't ask him his religion, his political party. You go there because you believe he's going to make you well. When you take a taxi from the center of Akure and you come to Adaba, you don't ask his political party or his religion. You enter because you believe he has a competency to get you to your destination. Everybody needs to look at the documents of the political parties and say to themselves, what these people are saying about economy, is it real? Can they do it? Is it achievable? Agriculture, will there be more food? Can we sustain ourselves? How are we going to get the farms working again? Industrialization, they say big words. They say big industries. No, small scale industries that will feed you and I and provide a living for every household. How is Atiku going to do that? In terms of the commerce, in terms of the businesses, what incentives are going to be given for small businesses, small to medium scale businesses to actually thrive? That is what will kickstart the economy. I know, again, that you need to look at the antecedents of whoever is contesting and ask yourself, have they done it before? How successful were they? And in this regard, Atiku scores very highly. So break it down, make it simple, because that's what Nigerians are interested in.
Okay, according to the documents with me here, it says the economy of our dream. I'm lifting this verbatim from the document now. It said, our economic agenda will seek to alter the current trajectory of the Nigerian economy and build a competitive and resilient economy and remain the largest in Africa and 15th largest globally, with a GDP per capita raised from the current levels of, quoting the figures now, $2,000 to $5,000 by 2030, according to him. And it says he wants to achieve respectable economic growth, aspire to a growth performance above the average of sub-Saharan Africa, achieve diversification, a diversified economy with strong linkages amongst key sectors, notably oil and gas, agriculture, manufacturing, and MSMEs, to strengthen the productive base of the economy, expand the export. But before I continue to reel out this point, let's talk about this diversification part that he mentioned. He wants to diversify the economy with strong linkages amongst key sectors, notably oil and gas, agriculture, manufacturing, and all that. Now, Atiku was once vice president. And the question is, if we want to start judging each of these candidates by their antecedents, the first question would be, how much of diversification did Atiku do with his principal at that time while they were in office? How would you answer this question if Nigerians put this question up at any point?
I have an advantage because my first degree was in economics, so I understand everything you just read. But do Nigerians understand it? Verity, how are we going to break this down for our people to understand what we're talking about, making it the best economy in Africa? All this GDP talk, I understand it because I'm an economist by training. But Nigerians need to understand what that means. Manufacturing. What's manufacturing? I want to open my shop and be able to manufacture, produce things. It's as simple as that. So he needs to say, we're going to give you loans that will be interest-free to be able to do what? To be able to produce. We're going to open up the roads to make sure that agriculture, whatever we produce, is coming from the farms, is not what? Is not going to spoil. And you'll be able to get it to the market and it will bring down the price. Like my friend Kennedy said earlier on, the demand and supply is a simple analysis. The more there is in the market, the price has to crash. Where the people are suffering now, the prices of things are unbearable. And it's because there's no supply. or inadequate supply. Why do we have inadequate supply? Because there are no farms. Or there are no farmers. Why are there no farmers? Because they can't go to the farm because of insecurity. All these things are interlinked. So we need to break it down and make it simple for people to understand. I understand the grammar.
When it talks about privatization again, this will raise dust amongst Nigerians, because back then, like he said, though, these are allegations that we cannot substantiate yet.
Forget about allegations.
There are allegations, but in every statement there is an iota of truth, in every rumor. Now, this is a man who was said to be the chairman of National Council on Privatization between 1999 and 2007. Under his watch, national assets were sold, including the NNPC itself at that time, the Aluminium Smelter Company of Nigeria, Daily Times, Nigeria Airways, to mention a few. And now he's coming back to Nigerians with the same narrative of privatizing, of leading a largely privatized economy. The same Nigerians that complained about 2009 till now, how many years is that do we have? About 13 years ago, are the same Nigerians you're selling the same narrative to. How do you want to convince them? And this at that time it was said that most of the benefits were not even remitted to national coffers.
Well, you are not. Everybody, the entire world is listening to us in this platform, because we have a very large platform. Apart from those that are using their radio sets to listen, there are people who listen online. For somebody told me once that he was listening to us from the United States. So, some of these allegations are just in the realm of allegations. But let us take it one by one. I don't know whether you were here when Nitel was operating.
Did you read My Watch by Obasanjo?
I read. I have the 3 volumes.
Okay.
Yes. It's that's why I say in the realms of speculation and allegation. There's not, somebody can come in and tell you are a thief. That's his opinion.
As he explained, Nigeria's demand, that's the essence of transparency and accountability. When allegations are raised, you should explain yourself, so you would at least clear the air
let me
for clarification purposes.
Let me explain to you, especially in the area of privatization. You know, I wanted to talk about Nitel. They told us that, Nitel, the workers of Nitel were not paid and things like that and so many. But you and I know that telecommunication has received a transformation. It's something that we can be proud of as Nigerians. But if there were other areas where the plans didn't quite work, you cannot place it on the policy. You cannot place it on those who formulated the policy. You must agree that who executed, or let me say those that kind of drove the processes. For example, now we have meters that are supposed to be put in the hands of people instead of what they call estimated meters. But Nigerians will go the extra mile. Not all Nigerians. There are some Nigerians that will now tamper with those meters in such a way that they can take light or use light without paying. So we must also consider the Nigerian factor that has made it impossible for some of these things to work. In Akure, for example, the governor of the state has to erect what my friends call the Jericho to stop people from using the pedestrian bridge that has been there since the time of Olumilua. Why must anybody that has his senses correct run across the road with vehicles flying when there is a pedestrian bridge? So some of these things that they are making references to, they say this one is sold to his friends and things like that. You know, it was even after the time of Obasanjo, even in the time of Jonathan, there were some of these companies that were actually privatized. So the fact that
are you saying Nigerians should just pretend like these allegations were never raised and move on like everything is okay?
If anybody is serious about the allegations, there are procedures that can be taken.
Okay, let me ask a pointed question, Mr. Akimoyo. When allegations are raised or leveled against you, and you are supposed to be a public office holder who is vying for another political office, what should you do? Even if any court hasn't convicted you yet, what do you think should be the right thing to do? The right thing to do by Nigerians?
Well, allegations are allegations. When they become charges that are properly lodged, that's the time that you really need to address them. However, once you put yourself in the public space, you're running for any office, be it local councillor up to the presidency, then you have a moral obligation to answer and put to bed any questions that impugn on your integrity and your personality. So if it was I personally, some of those things I would really address. But are you going to address the My Watch 3 volumes? It's not necessary, because that's the opinion of the author. Things relating to your previous stewardship, then this is a time to account. And I'm sure he will do that during the course of the campaign. And it's not just him, it's every political aspirant who's looking to occupy an office in 2023 that's going to be shot down with allegations. But the question is not allegations as such. It is, what did you do when you were there? Did you leave a legacy that is now thriving? And is that sufficient for people to take a chance on you again, that if you're given an opportunity, you'll be able to expand on what you've done before? And that's what I think that Nigerians need to be looking at for each of the candidates, especially that of the PDP. Because he was vice presidency. His hands may have been tied because he had a boss, and he was the boss who was the driver. But he was the conductor. He was the second in command in that vehicle. Without
having to necessarily refer to My Watch, because, I mean, that's a different ballgame entirely.
No, you asked if we had read.
The principal,
yes,
who was at that time the president of Nigeria,
yes,
specifically said that your presidential candidate is the most corrupt person he has ever seen.
He said that when? He said that when?
Do you want me to?
He didn't say that. He didn't say that today.
Do you want me to play that video for you now?
Look,
the audio.
His Excellency the former governor has said so many things pro and against Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. There's so many things he has said. There's so many things I've said about my brother, pro and con. But the issue is, are there allegations that need to come to a court of law? If the answer is no, let's move on. Until they are there, I'm actually a lawyer as well, and we don't go on speculation and hearsay.
No, the reason I'm saying this is because they worked closely.
Yes,
together.
They did.
They understood the workings of the Nigerian economy.
They remain unsubstantiated.
They have a lot of information that you and I are not privy to.
Yeah, let them bring it out.
Should we say that Obasanjo is lying then?
No, what we're saying is that they still remain unsubstantiated allegations. Okay,
moving forward now, year in, year out, dispensation in, dispensation out, we hear promises from candidates across political parties. We hear we'll create 1 trillion jobs in 1 year. Well, and now here is Atiku again saying that he plans to create 3 million new jobs. 3 million new jobs. 10 million poor Nigerians will be lifted out of poverty annually. Given the economic indices that we have, moving forward, how do you think? I know you're not the carrier of this vision, but he is your presidential candidate.
He even explained.
How do you think this will be done?
He has explained in very simple terms what he intends to do to the economy that will make the economy capable of absorbing at least 3 million persons in a year, such that about 10 million, because right now 90.7 million Nigerians are living below the poverty line. That is UNDP figures. That is almost over 40% of the Nigerian population is living under the poverty line. That's less than $1 per day. So if, for example, let us even take the one of small-scale industries that have capacity to access loans, credit, interest-free loans, facilities, without these red tapes that make it impossible for them to access the loans. Even in a small community, in my village, somebody can have a cottage industry of about 20 people or 30 people all over the world. It is the private sector that drives the economy. So it is the private sector that is being stifled. It is the private sector that is being strangulated. So much so that manufacturers are leaving Nigeria because they can't have access to dollars to buy their raw materials. Why? Because this money or these dollars have been channeled to the bureau de change establishments where these monies are being converted to rent seeking. So these are the areas that are going to be blocked, and just even a small bakery of manufacturing bread can employ about 20-30 people. So once we absorb, ready workers into these establishments, definitely poverty will reduce. Definitely those that are looking for jobs will get jobs to do. So it's a very simple arithmetic that he has taken his time to give us details. If we talked about clusters, maybe there are companies that are making plastics. You can have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them in a cluster, so that they will have access to electricity, they have access to roads provided for by the government. Do you know how many people in Bogota, some years back, maybe in the 80s, one small company, Oluwa Glass, was able to take up more than 3,000, 5,000 workers from the environment. What about the oil palm? These are things that have been demonstrated before, just that this government has refused to listen, and that's where we are.
Okay, before we open the phone lines for Nigerians to also be part of the conversation, Mr. Akimoyo, quickly, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I was going to say that creation of jobs is not hard, but we have to be inventive. I think I've said it before on one of your programs that security and job creation can be addressed with one swoop. Every street that is more than that's more than 1 kilometer must have a street manager. The street manager is responsible for maintaining that area. As a street manager, you're addressing the issue of security, you're addressing the issue of sanitation and hygiene. You're looking at who is coming in new, who is coming in old, the movement. These are the sorts of jobs that need to be created. And who's going to pay for it? The people who live in that community, that want their streets to be clean, that want security to thrive in their environment, that want to know the strangers who have come in. It's circulating the money that is already in the system for a worthy cause. How many streets do we have in Nigeria? You create millions of jobs straight away. And it's going to be paid for by those who receive the service.
The presidency is not a one-man show, and we understand that. It sounds simple. There's a saying that goes, it's easier said than done. It's more important to have a crop of cohorts now to say that would key into the vision and bring it to life. But before we go ahead with that, let me quickly open the lines for Nigerians to call 0908-177-8793, 0908-177-8793. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, ma.
Good morning. What's your name? All right. Probably you'd have to call again. Well, as I call. Sorry about that. 0908-177-8793, 0816-251-9999. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. What's your name?
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Hello, good morning. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Olumiwa Francis. If you are hearing me from here,
Yes.
I'm from Ijoka.
Okay, please go
I
ahead.
just want to throw light under my watch. You should know that during Obasanjo regime, twice Nigeria was adjudged to be the best economy on the African continent. That's one. And Atiku was the one heading it. And let me put here that I'm disenfranchised and I'm apolitical. The fact must be put where they are. Then number two, you should know that this man, Obasanjo, is very vindictive. Everybody knows him for that. However old he is, go and ask the current Alani of Idwani, the retired Major General Olufemi Olutoye. And because of his vindictiveness against the man have to quit the, the military during 1976, during Morikala regime. Go and ask him. Everybody knows that man. Because Atiku rose against him, vehemently, that he should not go for Toka. That has been the problem of Atiku with that man. Okay. And I only pray God will forgive Obasanjo because what he's doing, if he dies as he is.
All right, so I think that's the much you'll be able to take. Your All right, thank you very much for being a part of the show. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, ma.
Good morning. What's your name?
The grandpa from Unifier.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, ma. To my brother, I greet you, good morning, ma.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Okay. That's okay. All right, well, let's see if we can take one more call. Hello, good morning, before we wrap it up. Good morning. Okay, so
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. You're on. What's your name?
I am Mr. Kende calling from Akwa in Ondo State.
Good to have you.
Yes, with what we have been discussing ever since concerning Nigeria in views of leadership, all what we mentioned like economy, manufacture, agri input, all these are required accelerated person that can man all these kind of problems in the country. We need a kind of accelerated person that can make sure he do all this kind of tackle all this kind of problems without any hindrance.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, we won't be able to take more calls on the show this morning, but before we go, Mr. Perite, what is the chance, or what are the chances of PDP in this election?
You see, the PDP stands a very great chance of winning these elections because the APC came on the mantra of change. They promised that $1 will be equal to £1. They said so many things, and in almost 8 years, not one of these promises have been fulfilled. Therefore, Nigerians will have to forcefully using the votes.
Even when the APC has alleged that your party copied the Buhari's, President Muhammad Buhari's manifesto in 2019.
How can they say that? PDP was in government for 16 years. They have been there for 8 years. And like Soludo said, not Soludo, Muhammad Sanusi said that in 5 years, the gains that have been made in 35 years have been destroyed by the APC government. It's shameful.
All right, Mr. Akimoyo.
Nigerians need to scrutinize all manifestos. They need to listen to all candidates. They need to dissect whether or not that person can carry them to the promised land. I hope we can. I hope we convince Nigerians.
Okay, thank you very much for being on the show this morning. Moving forward, I think the question now should not be what, should be how. We've heard a lot of we'll do this, that, and that. But a lot of times we fail to, inquire about how this will be done. And that's the process we've started already. We hope to, sustain this throughout the electioneering process. Thank you once again for being a part of the show. We'll be back on Thursday next week for another edition. I want to thank my studio guests for being on the show this morning. Mr. Perite Kennedy, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And Mr. Gwenga Akimoyo, it's nice to have you here.
It's a pleasure.
To everyone who called in, we really appreciate your input. My name is Olabisi Olani Oluwasegun. Good morning.